This video is about roles of various people in the design process. Now, within the design process, you might have heard a range of terms coming around, such as the client, the designer, inventors, a designer maker, makers or manufacturers themselves, and obviously users, which are sometimes termed as consumers or customers. Now, the client is obviously someone who is an individual, or it might be a group, who have come up with probably a new product or a new idea, and they might well be entrepreneurs that are seeking to make money or seeking to sell this product or put it out to a market. So they're often going to need someone else to either financially back their project, or also designers, for example, to help them develop the product. And you see a lot of this sort of thing now, with clients or potentially entrepreneurs, whereby currently, you have crowdfunding sort of projects where they're looking for this finance directly, but they can get it from crowdfunding, things like the Kickstarter projects that you see online. Now, the designer obviously links to the client, and it's very likely that they're going to be working together with the client to develop a design brief and to formulate sort of a design specification or design criteria, as you might know it. And in sort of a large organisation, it will also involve the marketing department, so they're working to make sure that they know exactly who the user is, perhaps the profile in this user or this consumer, and what they want from a new product, for example. And they might have product managers within the process, effectively, that monitor the product's development and work between the designer, the manufacturer, the marketing team, effectively, to make sure that what the product is being produced for the client obviously matches the needs of the actual customer or consumer themselves. Now, inventors could effectively be a client, or they might be an entrepreneur, for example, who generally have produced a new product, or they've got a very good idea that they want to kind of get out there into the commercial world, and this might be taken from them by sort of designers or product designers, effectively, to try and get that sort of concept and then develop it into a product that is marketable and saleable. In addition to this, in a more sort of small scale, you might have heard the term designer maker. Now, a designer maker is effectively an individual who kind of takes on a lot of the process themselves. So you don't see it a great deal recently, because obviously a lot of large companies have popped up, effectively, that are sort of putting products into mass manufacture. But on a smaller scale, craft workers, people like potters and jewellery makers, and people who make one-off costumes or bespoke works, you see this sort of small scale production, or sort of this cottage industry style production, getting a little bit of a reinvention at the moment. So things like Etsy shops and stuff like this that you might have seen online are a perfect example of where sort of designers take on the sort of making and, to an extent, the marketing process themselves, setting up their own shops and obviously selling directly to their consumers. Now, with the designer, they obviously have to work, as I say, in teams, and they have to have a lot of dialogue going on with makers and manufacturers. So obviously these are the people who are going to manufacture the product, and there's going to be a lot of to-ing and fro-ing in between designers and the manufacturer, that's maybe even owned by the client or potentially the entrepreneur, and they need to make sure that the product can be made and effectively and turned into a reality. Now, what you find quite a lot now is the work between getting an idea from idea stage and into a manufactured product, and obviously sold in shops and things like this, is they're going to take the advantage of global manufacturing systems, whereby you're looking around the world, effectively, not just within your own microcosm, to choose the best manufacturing sites, or the ones that can work to meet your requirements, or have the tooling or the manufacturing capabilities to allow you to produce the product. And the advantages of obviously global manufacture is it could potentially allow for lower labour costs. It might mean that raw materials or expertise are more available in that particular part of the country or part of the world. It's going to mean your design can therefore be more economical to design and manufacture. The only sort of caveat to this, obviously, is you've got to think about perhaps the environmental, social, moral sort of constraints of doing this, whereby if you are kind of shipping products backwards and forwards, there's a environmental impact on this that you'd obviously think about and I'll be talking about in other videos to do with the environment, and also the social impact of this as well. It's like, are the workers working for these manufacturers, are they getting paid fairly? Do they have the correct working rights and things like this to get a good outcome from their work? Now, right at the end of the spectrum, so if you go through all of this and you can design and manufacture your product from idea to sort of completion stage and manufacture, then it obviously goes to the user or the consumer or the customer, for example, and it's then going to go to sort of marketing teams to make sure that they undertake the research to make sure that they have the target market identified and that they are pushing the product to those consumers' needs.